Good day to you. This is Tony Ballinger from the Fighting Men of Rhodesia series. Today I have as our guest Calum Mackenzie, who gave three very good talks on our Fighting Men of Rhodesia series, and they were numbers 144, numbers 151, and numbers 155. Three very good episodes, and I recommend you go and listen to them. But today we're talking about remembering our friends, our comrades and colleagues that died in the war, people that we knew, people that we loved or served with. And I think this is the fifth one in the series. If you've not discovered this side of Fighting Men of Rhodesia yet, you can type in Remembrance and then 01 or 02 or 03 or 04, and you can listen to the testimonies of our guys talking about men or even women that they served with that died in the war. And so I'd like to hand this over to Calum. Calum, it's lovely seeing you again, my friend. It's interesting to note that one of the guys you're going to talk about today, I actually knew him, so I might add my 5 pence later on in the talk, if that's okay with you. But welcome, and please do go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. First of all, I'd like to speak about the ex-Jemison people who I went to school with. There are far more people on the Jemison Roll of Honour, but of course, some of those guys came behind me, so I don't know those people at all. So it'd be pointless for me to mention them at all. So starting with the very first guy is a guy called Chris Vessels. In my second year at Jemison, he was killed with the RLI at Op Cauldron on the 26th of the 3rd, 1968. And we actually attended his funeral in Gatuma because, of course, he was a boarder at our hostel. So at that stage, my parents were still up in Zambia as I was. So I was totally unaware of the war. So that was a bit of a reminder to me of what happened. Then the second guy who we were at school together, he was Second Lieutenant Norman Steen of the RLI. He was killed on the 2nd of the 4th, 1975. Now, Norman was an absolute character. When you see his photograph, you'll see he had a face like a cheeky monkey. He was just, at school, it didn't matter if Norman was doing nothing, he would always be in trouble. We could have the two Swanepoel twins knocking 10 types of nonsense out of each other, and the housemaster would walk in and say, "Steen, what's going on here?" If he was just standing doing nothing. He was just one of the naughtiest guys I knew. He was such a fun-loving guy. I mean, I have to tell this story. If we broke a window in the hostel, we had to pay 25 cents. I mean, that didn't cover the cost of the paint, but it was just to let you know that if you break something, you have to pay for it. And Norman one day was walking down the passageway with I think it was a 1 kilo or 2 kilo weight, a 2 kilo weight attached to a piece of string on his finger, and he was swinging this weight as he was walking along, and the string broke because, of course, the centrifugal force, and it hit the center of the window and broke all 6 panes. And when the housemaster came and said, "Steen, what the hell was going on?" He said, "Well, I had this 2 kilo weight on a piece of string, sir, and I was swinging around because the string snapped." And the housemaster just said, "I don't believe this. I don't believe this." And he walked off. And Norman was the only guy I know who broke glass window panes and never had to pay for one because the housemaster was just completely stunned that somebody would walk around swinging a weight on the end of the finger. And I said, he was such a lovely guy. But Tony, the one thing that amazed me, I did see him after school, and he was working for Robank at that stage. And at school, Norman was so annoyed that his life was regimented by the ringing of bells. To change your periods to, for instance, I think our school periods were 45 minutes each. Break time, bell went as well. At the hostel, the bell rang for prep, the bell rang for lunch, it rang for dinner, it rang for end of prep. So, in other words, he said to me, "I'm so annoyed that my life is ruled by bells." And then he went off and joined the regular army. So that was a bit of a shock to us. And of course, when he was killed in 75, we went to his military funeral in Warren Hills, and a full military funeral is not a nice thing to attend. And from having a guy who was so full of life, it was actually quite terrible to attend that. one of the saddest things was that at school, Norman was going out with a girl called Lorna Daniels, and her elder brother Richard Daniels played rugby with us. He was in hostel, very very good middle distance and long distance runner. And Richard was killed in a car accident during R&R. He was actually a national service police officer with support unit, and he was killed on the 6th of September 1975. So it was only 5 months after Norman's death. And so the Daniels family were hit with the loss of an ex-boyfriend of Lorna's, and plus their own son in the space of 5 months. So that was terribly sad.
Yeah.
The next guy was a guy called Gerald Park, and he was a youngster. He was a junior when I was a senior. Very, very good long distance runner. Very, very quiet, very humble guy. And he was killed on the 24th of February 1976. And as far as I know, he was doing his national service with RLI. And that's why he's marked as a rifleman and not as a trooper in the RLI. Other guy was a guy called Freddie Halberstadt. Freddie Halberstadt was killed on the 8th of August 1976 with 4RR. Freddie, I remember him as this little young blonde-haired kid. He was just always smiling, and that I think he may have also been a good long distance runner. I can't remember offhand. I haven't been able to establish that. Next guy was a guy called Henry Argent. Henry Argent was he was a senior in my first year at high school in our hostel, and Henry was with First Bat, and he was killed 17th of the 3rd, 77. I think if memory serves me right, it was a blue and blue incident where he got up to go for a wee in the night, and the guard got a bit of a fright and shot him because he hadn't notified the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then our ex-head boy, George Dyson, he was with 5th Bat. He was killed up at Churindu. He was killed the 30th of January in 1978. And George I'd also played rugby against after school. So quite funny, from being this little skinny junior to suddenly playing the same weight and the same size as a guy who was your ex-head boy. It was quite eventful. The last guy who has I'm saying, this isn't all the people who died at Jameson. One of the saddest things was a guy called Bruce Burns. He was a second lieutenant with engineers, and he was killed in Puma 164 with Charlie Small, Captain Charlie Small, who ran our DEMS course when I was on recce selection, along with Nev Fox and Leroy Choppy Duberly, the Rhodesian rugby player. I'd played rugby with and rugby against Leroy. So out of those 4 engineers, I knew all 4 of them. So that was. So that was actually a very sad day. And Bruce was a top student, wrote very good poetry. And I said that was a real shock when all those guys died in that Puma. Then of course there was a lot of guys that I knew not from Jameson, but people from Chaplin, people from Guinea Fowl who we actually played a lot of sport against because we were a Midland side.
Mm.
And Snowy Cocroft, that guy that was killed on my very first call up. As far as I know, he was. I saw his name on a Chaplin Roll of Honor, and that was the 23rd of April 1973. And I think Snay went to Chaplin, but I definitely know that Pierre Tiddlestad, who was killed in 17th of August 1976. He was too in depth.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre and I had played age-related rugby and cricket all the way through together. So and also been at athletic meets. So it was a guy that, although I didn't really know him personally, I mean, we always said hello to each other after a game of rugby or a game of cricket and that. And then there was Doug Havner. Doug was a captain with 10th Bat, 14th of January 1979, when they went to take out those auxiliaries in Kokwe that were giving a bit of problems. And once again, Doug, I played rugby against and sporting meets and that. And the saddest thing as well, there was a guy called Tony Turner who was an Air Force tech who was in the chopper with Doug. And I played rugby with him at Forces Rugby Club because he was a territorial. He wasn't a regular Air Force. Otherwise, we would have played for Serum. So once again, two guys, in the same instance that I knew. And then there was Ian Fritzy Fraser, who was from Guinea Fowl. And Fritzy, once again, I'd always played against him playing rugby. And after our schooling, and Fritzy was with our national service as well. He actually stayed with my best mates. They shared a flat together in the late 70s. And Fritzy was with 8PAT. He was a lieutenant with it. He was killed on the 6th of August 1978. Then another very sad thing, a guy called John Digger Smith. He was killed the 26th of March 1977. He was with One and Dip. Digger and I used to ride our motorbikes together in Salisbury. He married a girl who, I was around in Zambia when she was born, so I knew Sharon very, very well. And the saddest thing with Digger was that they were through in Bandura, and Sharon had come through for my best mate's wedding, and her and I were dancing together, talking about everything and how's Digger doing. Digger's doing his national service, and Digger had been killed, and the army wasn't able to get hold of her. And on the Sunday, when they did get hold of her, and we were sitting, my mother and I, we were sitting listening to the news, and when they said John William Smith, my mother said, "My God, that's Digger." And I'd just been talking. Well, she was his widow. That's that. We didn't really realize it. So that was quite a sad day as well. When that connection again, and then of course also little Roy Orchard from your company, Foreign Depth Corporal Orchard.
Yes.
He was a great little flyer for Salisbury Sports Club, and I think Roy would have gone places. He had a rugby brain, very, very, very elusive, very nippy. I do remember even when he was playing rugby, he was smiling half the time. Even though he was just just such a nice little guy.
Fantastic young man. Yeah.
And then of course one of the saddest things was that when the Viscount went down, that Viscount Tanyani, out of the 5 crew members, I knew 4 of them. Captain John Hood, sorry. He had gone out for a brief period with my ex-sister-in-law's best friend. Garth Bowman, the first officer, we knew him from Zambia. He was a few years older than me, but we knew the family from Zambia, from Kitwe. Brenda Pearson, who was a ASS. She was fiancée of Spike Lemmer, who was in the Zulu Scouts. As I'm saying, 3 out of the 4 crew members I personally knew.
Terrible.
Then there was Ron Vermeulen and his wife Alison, and Ron's folks, the Vermeulens from Gatuma, and Ron had been at school with us. Alison as well, obviously. Alison's maiden name was Mace, and she was actually she was the woodwork teacher's daughter. So once again, there was 4 people four people that I knew of, well, more than that, 7 people in total when that first Viscount went down. So,
just for our international viewers, that we had 2 Viscounts shot down leaving Kariba, flying to Salisbury. Viscounts were 4-engine turboprop aircraft, held about 40 people or maybe more, and we lost 2 of them on the flight from Kariba to Salisbury. And the first one you've mentioned, that's the one that got broken up in the Donga, is that right? When it did that?
That's correct. That's the one where people survived, yeah.
And then unfortunately, nasty things happened after that. But
yes, quite right.
Very, very sad, terrible loss. And I think it created a white-hot anger in the country. I think we were all ready to go and smash up half of Zambia and Mozambique over there.
Quite right. Especially when we had Nkoma come over the radio laughing and giggling about it. That really got my ire up. That really had me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's basically the people that I remembered. As I'm saying, a mixture of. I mean, most of them are like school friends and school colleagues. But as I'm saying, I mean, when Puma 164 went down, and to think that I knew four out of the 16 guys who lost their life that day, that was frightening. Very, very frightening.
It's such a waste of young life. I mean, we were all trying to serve our country and protect our loved ones, but when you think of the loss of their futures, getting married, having kids, sitting in the sun, having fun by a swimming pool, it's just all taken away from them. And so we've got to remember them with very high esteem, really.
The sad thing with Digger was that his first child, Bruce, he was around when Bruce was born. But Sharon, his wife, was pregnant with their second child. And so she never ever met her father, and he never ever saw his daughter.
Terrible, eh? Yeah. We only ponder on these things afterwards. At the time, it's just a hodgepodge, and your emotions are all over the place. Tell me a little bit more about how the first guy you mentioned, the RLI Loot, you say he's died in Op Cauldron, is that right?
No, that was Chris Vessels. Chris Vessels.
Do you have any further details or more intimate details about that?
I think that may have been the thing where Al Turl got his BCR. That particular. I know it was in the valley. Because as I'm saying, at that stage, I was still coming down from Zambia to go to school in Rhodesia. But Tony, just before I finish off, what I'd like to do is that I wrote something back in June of 2020. I saw some red poppies there, and I just wrote this. In Flanders fields, they said that a red poppy grew for every soldier killed, nurtured by his blood. I wonder if a flame lily grew where every Rhodesian soldier fell.
Beautiful, beautiful. Very thought-provoking. Yeah. Wouldn't that be lovely? I mean, I've got a flame lily on my cap here.
Exactly,
It would be lovely to think that very thing happened. Yeah, it's quite a moving accolade there. Calum, without trying to steal any of your thunder, I just think of Rich Daniels, and his lovely sisters, Lorna and Gail. They were tremendous people. I spent a lot of time on their farm, and they very obligingly gave a stupid 14-year-old, 15-year-old their shotgun or their rifle, and I'd walk out the whole day shooting birds and small game, and there was so much freedom there. And I think I died and went to heaven when Gail tickled my back one night on the veranda, being an innocent young guy, and every one of these young men, Roy Orchard, who I knew quite well as one of my corporals, they were just such fantastic young guys. But
funny thing with Richard, typical, you always pick up nicknames. Because of Daniels, we got Spaniels. From Spaniels, we got Dog. So we're playing rugby and you're shouting, dog, pass the ball. His parents are thinking, what the hell has my son done to have this nickname, Dog? So one day Mr. Daniels came to me and said, why do you guys call Richard Dog? And I expanded to him, and then he felt a lot better. But I think everybody's mother must have thought, what the hell has our son done to get this nickname of Dog?
And through what social circles did you come to know the Viscount crew?
Well, as I say, John Hood, as I'm saying, he was going out with my sister-in-law's best friend for a short period of time. So I met him in her flat. The Beaumonts, as I'm saying, I knew from Zambia, Garth Beaumont, and Brenda Pearson we knew from Bandura because our folks. So as I'm saying, it's very, sometimes that link is just tenuous, if you know what I mean. But it's amazing. Suddenly you hear a name and you think, my God, I played rugby against that guy, or I played rugby with that guy, or I remember him from school, or I remember him from another school. Crazy things like that. And
was a plaque of remembrance ever put up at Jameson School, or was it too
there's a roll of honour at Jameson School. Yeah.
So it sounds like they lost quite a few guys, eh?
I think it was something in the region of about 13 or so. I mean, from a tiny little school like that, you know what I mean?
And that was the school at Hartley, is that right?
It's in Gatuma, yeah.
Gatuma, yeah.
So I think Hartley was about 21 miles away, and then Kwekwe was the next closest school to us, which was 40 miles away, and then another 40 miles away was Grella, where of course we had Thornhill, Chaplin, and Guinea Fowl on the outskirts of the bush. So those are the main schools that we played against, plus Fort Victoria as well. We used to play against Fort Vic.
Us boys from Bambasonki, we were scared of coming down there because we knew we'd get turned into mincemeat. from all the farmers' boys. Out of all of them, I don't know if this is an easy question to answer, but which one affects you the most, Calum?
I think probably Norman's, because it was very early on in the war. I hadn't known that he'd gone to regulars, so that came as quite a shock. And then also, as I'm saying, that military funeral. I mean, I remember about 5 of us of his ex-school buddies. We all went round to the Monomatapa, and we had a wake for Norman. We just went down to the Prospectors Bar and had 10,000 cold beers. I think it was a weekday. I know that I was actually at work, and I just said to the guys, "Look, I'm going off to go and spoke to my manager, and off I went." And we went and had a few cold beers.
And here we are, 45, almost 50 years later, and the emotions are as strong as the day they happened. It goes to show how much they impacted our lives. Well, Calum, unless you've got anything else to say, I think we can leave it at that. It was a good presentation, and I'm sure the viewers will appreciate it. And while I'm on the air, so to speak, I would really encourage other people to come forward and do what Calum and a few others, including myself, have done on the Remembrance side of Fighting Men of Rhodesia. Just type in Remembrance and 01, 02, 03. This is probably 05 from Calum, and we'd like you to be 06. So please, it's actually very hard to get people to come forward and do this, and so please take up this appeal. You can contact me, Tony Ballinger, on Facebook, and I'll set the whole thing up for you. Calum, thank you very much indeed for coming on board. It's very much welcomed, and I wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you, Tony. Same to you.
Thank you, my friend. Take care. Bye-bye.